Good day, good day. It's Monday morning, coffee with Dr. Tom. I hope you've got your coffee. I've got mine. Marzi has hers. And we're doing this both on Facebook and on Instagram. So if you have any family or friends that you think would benefit from hearing what we have to say, shoot them over a text and let them know it's theDr.com on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm just going to share my screen to begin here. Let's see, let me do the share. And here we go, share this screen. And let's put it on full screen there. And yeah, there we go. I think it's working. Marcy's, yeah, okay, good, good. Well, to begin with, let me begin by saying thank you so much for being here. It gives all of us at theDr.com a feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment to be doing the work that we love to do. So many of you are sending us messages, and it really helps. You know, it helps empower us to keep working, you know, and keep doing what we do. So when you send us messages and you like this on Facebook and on Instagram, you know, Facebook sends the announcement out to more people. The more likes we have, the more shares you do. They send announcements out to a larger percentage of people, so more people get to hear this. So thanks for participating in the way that you are. And it fuels us, it keeps us going. And I'm very grateful to be able to do this work. And that goes right to what today is. Today is Memorial Day. And in the United States, it's a day, this is a US holiday, but whether you're in the US or not, the concept is valid for everyone. And that is to acknowledge all of those people who came before us, who did everything they did so that we could have the lives we have today. I sent a shout out this morning to a good friend of mine who was special forces and had to do a lot of things in the name of protecting this country. And, you know, whatever our politics are, what we think is a valid war or not, people risk their lives, not for profit, not for gain, but because they want to protect their families and the way of life we have. And I'm very grateful. And I hope all of you will take a moment today and think of maybe your uncle was in the Navy and you really have never talked to him about it or something, you know, but reach out to those in your life who you know who have been in the armed forces and whatever country you're in. And just tell them thanks. You know, I've been able to raise my children the way that I have, and they're wonderful human beings, because in the country that we live in, there were lots of opportunities. And, you know, we wouldn't have any of this if we didn't have people who went before us, that many of them gave their lives for that. So we always take a moment on Memorial Day to acknowledge those. My father was in the Navy in World War II, and we always acknowledge my dad. And you know, he's been gone for a long time now, 30 years. But we always acknowledge him and his friends from that generation that we met. And take a moment today and just think of those people that you may not have ever expressed this to before, and just let them know, you know, and even if they passed on, a moment of quiet prayer, just say thank you. We have a new war today, and that's what this coffee is about, what all these coffees are about. They're about the war that's going on inside of us with our immune system, and the war that's going on around us around this topic of our immune system. And I'm not going to get into a lot of politics today, but maybe a little. But first, I've got a lot of really good information to show you that I think you'll appreciate. So thank you, Tim, and all of those who, with such courage, did whatever they did in their own minds, just trying to do their best to support us so that we could have the way of life that we have. Thank you all so very much. And there's a new group of unrecognized heroes, besides those who have fought in armed forces for us, either currently or in the past. There's a new group of unrecognized heroes. And those that are in the hospital that are sick and are not allowed to see their families. And can you imagine how terrifying it is to have whatever healthcare procedures are being done in a hospital and you can't see your mother, you can't see your father, they won't let you in? It's barbaric. It's just barbaric to think about the people who, in the natural course of their last days of life, perhaps they had cancer, perhaps they had a heart attack, perhaps they have some other disease, and they're being refused, families being refused to be with their children, to be with their spouse. And these people are dying alone. This is barbaric. Never before in history has this been allowed. And don't want to get into a lot of politics, but this is barbaric. And I want to bring it to your attention, because as you look at this a little bit, maybe you'll speak out also. And if we have 5 people speaking out, it doesn't mean a thing. If we have 500,000 people speaking out, it starts to mean something. That, you know, we want to trust those who we've put in charge or who have taken charge, but there's a lot of problems right now that things just don't add up properly. And there's hidden agendas that I don't want to get into a lot of politics about it, but I want to bring to your attention, and this is not conspiracy theory. I'm going to show you a couple of studies here that give you pause and say, wait a minute, what? What? So let's just move on. We all know that the principle of wisdom is to cure a disease before it's manifested. But if you don't, to cure a disease after it is manifested is like digging a well when one is thirsty or forging a weapon after the war has begun. So it's the things we do to strengthen our immune system that determine whether or not we get sick during this current time. And this slide that I've shown every coffee from my mentor and friend, Dr. Jeffrey Bland, is to remind us that how we live our lives has determined whether or not we get sick from this current virus, period. End of story. There's no woo-woo here that's, oh my gosh, this is the magic virus that can't be stopped. Nonsense. The studies say between 60 to 80% of the people who are exposed to the virus don't get sick. Why is that? They don't get sick because their immune system is strong enough to knock it on its butt as soon as it tries to get in. It can't get a hold in your body if you have a strong immune system. And when you realize that, let me say that again, when you accept that that's just basic physiology. No doctor argues with that. That's basic physiology. And when you accept that, then how we move forward in our lives will have a new paradigm that we think from. And excuse me, but period. End of story. Everyone has the ability to enhance their immune function so they don't get sick from this thing now or in the fall, in the rebound time. And I'm going to talk about that a lot as we're going through today about the rebound. But we have to understand every time you decide, well, do I need that forkful of pie? You know, Marcy got this great gluten-free, dairy-free cheesecake. And it's just delicious. It's frickin' delicious. It's unbelievably delicious. And she's cutting the thinnest slice. Every night for us, we're having this thin slice. She's laughing here and blushing, right? And every time she brings it over, you know, to the table, my first thought is, what, are we on a diet or something? You know, because it's so small. But I said, no, don't say anything. Don't say anything. And after, 5 forks and it's gone, but I'm being conscious of every bite to taste it and not just shoveling. And when it's done, I immediately want to go get more, but I just wait a little bit. Remember, we talked about Hari Hachibu, the number 2 premise in the blue zones, eat 20% less. And why does it take 20 minutes before we feel full when we're eating? And I gave the recommendation, before you go get that second serving, just sit and have a conversation at the table for 20 minutes. And then if you still want a second serving, go get it. And you'll find most of the time you don't. So I'm practicing Hari Hachibu with this cheesecake because it's so good. And I want more right away, but I forget about it. We're sitting there talking, we're watching a show or something, and I forget that I wanted another piece in a couple of minutes because I've been programmed to want volume, to shovel it in, to suppress whatever emotions are going on. We eat for comfort. We call it comfort food. So our lifestyle, having just a little piece, cutting smaller pieces, is a conscious choice to be healthier and not blast your immune system with too much sugar that weakens the immune system, right? All those little choices we make will make the difference in the big picture. You've heard me say before, base hits win the ball game. All the little things you do are accumulative for the end result of a stronger immune system. So I'll go back to that earlier statement, period. End of story. How you live your life determines whether or not you're going to get sick from this thing. Okay, let's move on. So this paper just came out, and look at the date. May 14th, just came out from the Medical School of East Virginia and their COVID-19 management protocol. And look at the second line down there that I've circled. We have 0 success for patients who are intubated, meaning they die. And a few weeks ago, I gave you the study from the Journal of the American Medical Association when they looked at 5,700 people hospitalized in New York. If they were put on respirators, 88.1% of them died. That's 9 out of 10 die on a respirator. Why would we ever use a respirator? If 9 out of 10 die, if people get so bad that they need help with breathing, why would we do this except as a very last resort? Because I've got no more tools in my black bag to help you. We have to try the respirator because a few people survive. I mean, that's a very last resort. I'm going to show you a couple of studies and what this medical group is teaching, what they found works. Our longstanding and more recent experiences show consistently successful treatment if traditional therapeutic principles of early and aggressive intervention is achieved before the onset of advanced organ failure. What does that mean? It means you get in there and you do these things I'm about to show you before they get to end stage where they need a respirator. And they have consistent, successful treatment. It's our collective opinion that the historically high levels of morbidity, that means getting really sick, and mortality, that means dying, from this virus is due to a single factor: the widespread and inappropriate reluctance amongst intensivists, those are the specialists in the hospital, to employ anti-inflammatory and anticoagulant treatments, including corticosteroids early in the course of a patient's hospitalization. It's essential to recognize that it is not the virus that's killing people. Rather, it's the patient's overactive immune system. You've heard me talk about the cytokine storm and how vitamin D helps and vitamin C helps. The flames of the cytokine fire are out of control and need to be extinguished. Providing supportive care with ventilators that themselves stoke the fire and waiting for the cytokine fire to burn itself out simply does not work. This approach has failed and has led to the death of tens of thousands of patients. This is from the Virginia Medical School. The systematic failure of critical care systems to adopt corticosteroid therapy resulted from the published recommendations of the World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control, meaning they were wrong and they're not taking ownership and changing their recommendations. Their erroneous recommendation to avoid corticosteroids in the treatment of COVID-19 has led to the development of myriad organ failures, which have overwhelmed critical care systems across the world. Our treatment program targeting these key pathologies has achieved, now listen to this, near uniform success, meaning everybody benefits if begun within 6 hours of a COVID-19 patient presenting with shortness of breath or needing more than this amount of oxygen. Uniform success. Could they say it any clearer? Now, we've talked before of how there's two immune systems. There's the innate immune system. That means the autoresponders, the first defenders that are out there, first responders, and then the adaptive immune system. That's when your body makes antibodies, the long-term protection. Coronaviruses are particularly adapted to evade immune detection and dampen human immune responses. They're pretty good at hiding out and not being recognized or not activating the innate immune response. So when they can get in there and hide out and your innate immune system doesn't get activated, what the East Virginia Medical School is saying, you gotta give some help in there to put the fire out because the innate immune system is not doing it. And if you get aggressive in there for the anti-inflammatories, including steroids, steroids are the most powerful of drugs. We often talk about they're the nasties, they're the last resort. Long-term use has side effects, but short-term, this is exactly what they're designed for. This is exactly it, because they're very powerful anti-inflammatories. I'm going to show you the recommendations that come from the East Virginia Medical School. But beforehand, about what we do to support our innate immune system. It's the rainbow diet and all the polyphenols in the deep colors of the rainbow that are in the fruits and vegetables you eat every meal, every day. You get this much of the benefits that prevent that virus from hanging out, sneaking in, and not being recognized. And I'm going to show you some other points about polyphenols in a minute, but that is critical. What's on the end of your fork, meaning your lifestyle choices, determines how strong and responsive your innate immune system is. Now, there are a few people that have genetic vulnerabilities and they've been getting sick since they were infants and their immune system doesn't work very well. But for the vast majority of us, the vast majority, it's what's on the end of your fork every day that has a huge contribution to whether or not you're going to get sick. Because there's going to be a rebound coming in the fall. There's going to be a rebound. And what's your innate immune system going to do? How did it handle this initial exposure? And how's it going to handle the next one? I showed you this 6 weeks ago, that the former head of the CDC was saying, you know, vitamin D is helpful here. It's not going to fix everything, but it's helpful. Well, here's a new study that just came out last week, and I wanted to show it to you about this topic of vitamin D. Because people are advised to stay at home as much as possible, the government health agencies of Great Britain have recommended people take vitamin D through the summer and autumn during this pandemic. If you currently are not taking vitamin D, ideally, you should get a test done to see what your levels are. And that's, you know, I said, go to your doctor, get the test done, but it's a finger prick test. That's, you can do the blood draw, but you have to go to the doctor's office for all that. And if you don't want to go out to the office, you can get the finger prick test and get it from your doctor. And if you can't, you can get it from us. It's the DRTOMOBRYANGLUTENFREE /vitamin D test. You'll see it there. Best to get it from your doctor, but do a simple test to see what your vitamin D levels are. And we have videos on our site that talk about what the numbers should be and what do you do if you're low and all of that. But the government of Great Britain is saying, take some vitamin D. Everyone should make sure their vitamin D levels are more than adequate. I want robust vitamin D levels, not adequate vitamin D levels. Additionally, Black and minority ethnic people who are more likely to have vitamin D deficiencies because they have darker skin The darkness of the skin blocks the sun rays from converting the hormones in the skin to vitamin D. Seem to be worse affected than white people by COVID-19. For example, data from the UK Office for National Statistics shows that Black people in England and Wales are more than 4 times more likely to die from this virus than are white people with the same care, the same responses by their medical people. They're 4 times more likely to die. Black males are 4.2 times more likely to die from COVID-19. Black females 4.3 times than the white ethnicity males and females. People of Bangladeshi and Pakistani, Indian, and mixed ethnicities also had statistically significant raised death involving this because compared with the whites. Why? Because their skin blocks the sun, so their vitamin D levels are lower. And if you go back and you watch my earlier, which one was it? I think it was 10, coffee 10, maybe 9, where we talked about the innate immune system, and it's the macrophages that respond in your lungs, and they fire a chemical special forces rifle, high-powered rifle, to go after the invader in your lungs. That's a good thing. But the spring on the trigger gets stuck in the on position, and the high-powered rifle becomes a submachine gun. Pop, 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 pop. That's a cytokine storm. And the spring on the trigger is controlled by vitamin D. You have low vitamin D, the spring on the trigger doesn't work and it doesn't pop back. The cytokines produced are not regulated, which means the spring on the trigger pops the trigger back and it's not firing anymore. With a vitamin D sufficiency, the trigger pops back. With a vitamin D insufficiency, the trigger gets stuck in the on position. You understand? Who in their right mind is not going to get their vitamin D levels to optimum levels? I mean, it's just one of those things. It's not going to cure this. I'll never say that any vitamin is going to cure a viral infection, but it sure helps. And it's not going to have a downside to you. Once again, ideal, do a finger prick test. It's inexpensive and easy. Do it for everyone in the family, because you're going to find you have 3 kids, 2 of them are low and 1 is optimum. And they're living in the same house, but it's all about metabolism and what you eat, what's on the end of your fork. So don't do one for the family, do everyone in the family, because everyone's different and you'll be surprised at the differences. First, vitamin D supports the production of antimicrobial peptides in the lining of the lungs, meaning fight the microbes that are coming in, thus making infection with the virus and development of these symptoms less likely. Second, vitamin D might help to reduce the inflammatory response to infection when you're exposed to this virus. Look at the title of this article. Vitamin D, do the deficient risk of poorer outcome? And the answer is yes, you do. Dr. Adrian Martineau and colleagues from universities around the UK launched this study to investigate how diet and lifestyle factors might influence transmission of this virus, severity of the symptoms, speed of recovery, and any long-term effects. They aim to recruit at least 12,000 people and to obtain interim results by the summer. And this is their quote: "At best, vitamin D deficiency will only be one of many factors involved in determining outcome of this virus, but it's a problem that could be corrected safely and cheaply. There's no downside to speak of, and good reason to think there might be a benefit." Could they say it any clearer? Come on, if you don't have optimum vitamin D levels, don't complain if you get sick. You know this now, and it's not difficult to do this. So here's the blood spot test. That's the finger prick. And there's a URL for you. I recommend you go to your doctor, call them, and get the test done from them. But if not, this is simple and easy. So what's of reinfection? Let's say that in this first round of exposure before summer's coming now. Memorial Day is the official launching of summer. And let's say in this first round, you had a little fever for a day or two. You had a little sore throat, and now you're fine. And your immune system, your innate immune system did okay. Now remember, I've talked before, it didn't do good enough because you got symptoms. The vast majority of people are exposed to this virus, they get no symptoms. Why? Because their innate immune system did its job. You get symptoms and you recover, great. Take a deep breath, great. And your innate immune system's not working so good. So this is the time when you work on fixing your innate immune system. So what's the risk of reinfection? So you've seen these now. These kinds of articles are coming out. This came out 3 days ago. Some have tested positive for COVID-19 after recovering. What does that mean? Well, there's two types of tests. There's the tests that look for the virus, the signature of the virus in your body. And then there's the tests that look to see, has the adaptive immune system kicked in? Meaning now you're making antibodies to protect you. And so this test they're talking about is the first test to see, hey, do you have this virus in your body? Do you have any of this virus still in your body? And what they're finding is that a lot of people are testing positive, but it's not what you think. So I'm going to do a little geeky on you here so that you understand about the testing. And I'm going to try to not go too down the rabbit hole, but a little bit. And this is from medcram.com, a great site to go to, super geeky information, but Dr. Roger Sahol does a fabulous job of outlining topics. And there's over 74, I think, of these that he's done since the start of this crisis. And they're just exceptional. And I follow him every day, and it's where I get some of my information to share with you. So these drawings are from some of his education. So this is what the virus looks like. And I said there's two types of tests. The name on the top, that's the first test. That's the name of the blood test or the nasal swab, the Q-tip going up your nose or down your throat that's looking to see, do you have this virus in you? So that's the name of the test, reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction. Now that's a bunch of Scrabble words. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know the name of it. But it's looking for the virus itself. And the drawing here is the drawing of the virus. This is what the virus looks like. Now, these things on the outside is called coronavirus because it's corona, like the sun, and there's rays coming out from the sun. Well, those rays are the docking stations that dock onto the receptors. Remember, receptors are like catcher's mitts. The pitcher throws the ball to the catcher, and whatever's in the bloodstream goes into a receptor site on the outside of the cell, and then it gets, that turns the doorknob, and the cell wall opens, and then whatever was in the receptor site goes into the cell. That's how your hormones get in your body. Thyroid hormone goes into a thyroid receptor site, and it turns the doorknob, and then the hormone goes inside the cell. Estrogen will not go into a thyroid receptor site. Testosterone will not go into a progesterone receptor site. There are receptor sites for everything in the body. Well, this virus binds onto a receptor site called ACE2. And it's one that medications use for high blood pressure and cardiovascular problems. But anyway, this virus, the rays coming out, they're the docking stations. They're like going through the bloodstream or in your lungs, and they're looking for ACE2 receptors that they can grab onto. That is why you want the multiple colors of the rainbow, because some of the polyphenols prevent the docking station of the virus from docking onto your cells, onto the receptors. Can't get in. The higher your quercetin levels, as an example, and we've talked about this in other coffees, and I gave you a list of foods that are high in quercetin. Eat some of those every day. We have capers about every 2-3 days as a little spice in dishes, because capers are really high in quercetin, right? You start thinking that way. In any event, the drawing I'm showing you, those are the docking stations, right? And then there's the shell. The yellow line is the shell or the membrane of this thing. And then there is the genetic material inside. That's the nasty, because when that genetic material gets into the docking station and then gets inside the cell, the genetic material slips into our own human DNA, and then it sheds, doesn't reproduce, it sheds into that DNA, and then you got more virus. and you get more virus that way. So that's how this thing works, very briefly, and not very sophisticated explanation at all, but that's how it works, okay? And reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction test, whether it's a blood test or the Q-tip, is looking for the genetic material. That's what it identifies inside the virus, okay? Now, this is further along in the MedCram explanation. It's really geeky. Don't worry about all the numbers and stuff. You don't need to know any of that. But what you want to know about is that part right there. That if your immune system is effective at destroying the virus, so you don't have the squiggly little purple lines on the left there anymore, now you've just got all these remnant pieces that are inside the cell. They're dead. They can't shed, they can't affect you anymore, and your body should be getting rid of those to some degree, but sometimes your body is really slow in getting rid of them. Your detox pathways don't get this crud out very well, and this stuff is still inside your cell. What they've learned is that the reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction test is so sensitive, it's identifying the crud. And it comes back positive, that they didn't know before, that it doesn't just identify the entire drawing on the left, meaning the whole virus. It's identifying the crud of the virus and coming back positive. Epidemiological, so in this study that just came out from the Korean CDC. So if you've been following this country by country, you know that the Koreans have been on top of this from day one. They did lockdown, they did lots of testing, and they have very small percentages of people that got sick and who died compared to the rest of the world. So there's something from the Korean CDC and these people that we can learn. So they looked at 285 cases that came back positive. So they were sick, they were successful, they got better. Then they went back and they checked them again with reverse transcriptase to see, are you reinfected? And the average was, I think it was 14 days. So it went from 2 days after they got well out to like 35 or 40 days. I don't remember the time frame. The average was 2 weeks after they were well. Did they still show signs of this virus? And they looked at 285 people. The average was 14 days. It went from 1 to 37 days. What did they find? They found that 96% of these people now had antibodies to protect them from COVID, but they all tested positive for reverse transcriptase, meaning everybody thought they've still got the virus. But 96% of them now have the antibodies. None of them had the virus itself. All they had was the crud, the broken up pieces of the virus. And they then looked at 790 close contacts to these people who tested positive, meaning spouses, children, people they're around a lot. Not one of those people, the close contacts, came back positive. Not one, meaning they were not transmitting. They were not dangerous. They don't need to wear a mask because they don't have any positive virus that they can pass on to others. Not one of them, 0%. This is huge to understand. Now we were talking to our friend yesterday in San Diego, and she took her daughter to a little farm and was walking around, and she was feeding some chickens, and the police came and told them they had to leave. There was nobody else around, but that they had to leave, and they had to put their masks on. We're living in a hysteria. I'm not going to do any more about that right now. I'm going to talk about it at the end a little bit. But look at this. 285 people, they were sick with the virus. They were successful and got well. They tested positive for the virus again, average 2 weeks later. And we thought, oh my God, they're contagious. Not one person passed on anything to 790 people. 0%. That's critically important to understand. They were powerless to cause an infection in other people, and they were powerless to cause disease in close contacts. So powerless to cause infection, this crud was powerless to cause infection inside of them. It's just crud that's got to be eliminated. If these people are healthier, I'd say get on a treadmill, start exercising a little bit, get your circulation going, detox, drink lots of water, flush this crud out of you, right? But it's powerless to cause an infection in them. And it was powerless to cause disease in close contacts. Virus isolation and cell culture of the respiratory samples, all results were negative. There was no virus isolated. 96% were positive for the neutralizing antibodies, meaning they got protection now. If they get exposed again, from what we know, they've got protection. They've got antibodies that'll neutralize this thing. A total of 790 contacts were identified. About half of them were family. From the monitoring of contacts, as of now, no case has been positive, newly confirmed from exposure during the repositive period alone. There were 3 people that tested positive, but they were hanging out with other people who were currently sick. Based on active monitoring, epidemiologic investigation, laboratory testing of repositive cases and their contacts, no evidence was found that indicated infectivity of repositive cases. This is the CDC of Korea. And their protocols for management of confirmed and repositive cases, management of confirmed cases after discharge from isolation and management of repositive cases will no longer be conducted. Meaning, once they're successfully through this and they're not sick anymore, they've got antibodies, we aren't going to have to manage them anymore. They're fine. The new protocols will also be retroactively applied to the cases currently under management. So people that were sick and they're coming back and they're being managed, they're on medications or whatever the actions are they're taking. The repositives currently under isolation and contacts currently within monitoring period, they're going back and saying no management's necessary because they're okay. You have the antibodies, they're neutralizing antibodies, you're okay. Now the last thing that I want to talk to you about are 2 videos I want to recommend you take a look at. I think the whole world knows who Tony Robbins is. And we don't think of him as a conspiracy theorist. You know, we think of him as, oh man, that guy is really successful at what he does and he's changed the lives of millions of people, empowering them to be more of themselves. And he just came out with a video 2 days ago. It's entitled COVID-19 Facts from the Front Lines. And the first thing he says, the very first thing, this may be one of the most important podcasts we've done, because the topics he's going to talk about fit right in line with what I've told you here today. So we're going to put the link here to the Facebook video of Tony Robbins. I'm going to request all of you, please take the time in the next day or 2. I think it's about 14 minutes long. It's not a long one. Take the time to watch it and then send me a message on Facebook. What do you think? What do you think? And it's really okay to say, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to say here. This is new information for me. Because there's a lot of politics going on right now and a lot of regulations that are being forced and proposed regulations that will change the dynamic of the health of the planet. The entire planet, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But we all need a little more education. So listen to the Tony Robbins one, 14 minutes long. And he ends with a really nice message of love and about expressing camaraderie and friendship with each other and supporting each other in this time, this really difficult time of crisis. And the second video, I couldn't get a picture to put here for you, is with my friend, Dr. Zack Bush. Zack did a tremendous video talking about where the real crisis is right now here. And it's not about a bug. And his message is one of just great love and how to move forward during this time of confusion, Many of us are confused. Many of us are saying, I can't believe anybody would allow this to happen. This can't be right. So there's lots of confusion, lots of hesitancy. Some people, I don't want to know about this. Both of these men are giving you messages of love and suggestions of how to move forward. Please take a look at both of these videos. The link is posted here for you. And then write me a little message. I want to know if I'm on track here with you, if this is of value to you. What do you think about this? Just give a call out here. You know, if you want to write a longer one, go ahead. If you want to write just a couple of sentences, but please, you know, I spend most of the week preparing this for you every week, right? And so give me a few minutes of your time. Watch these two videos and let us know what you think. As always, the transcripts are available, the videos, the slides, the studies I referenced, they're all available to you at theDr.com/coffee. This video today, this Facebook Live will stay on YouTube and on Facebook for you. It's always going to be there, accessible. And we love you all. Thank you so very much. And we'll see you next week.